everybody. Welcome to October's episode for Stars and Cards. This month, we're going to be looking at some of the themes that are coming up astrologically for October, and we'll be leaning into looking at some of the tarot links, predominantly for Libra season, but maybe a little bit for Scorpio as well, because we know the tail end of that starts for Scorpio. I don't know if this is the way we want to kick off, but we're in the midst of a eclipse season, something changing, happening, ending, I think, soon. And Shadi and I have both been saying how challenging this time period has been energetically for both of us. But yeah, hopefully it's been easier for some other people.
I know, I was just telling somebody that I'm like, I don't like eclipse season. Shh. So intense. But it does obviously depend on sort of where it hits you hard in your chart. Um, and let's just say the Pisces Virgo axis is going to be kicking my butt and perhaps yours, but oh, we'll see. The mutable signs are going to be in for some big shifts as we move through this new cycle of eclipses, new series. But it doesn't really get started till 2025. So we just got a snippet of it 2 weeks ago. And of course, we're recording today on the 1st of
Mhm.
October, which is something we don't usually do. We do it ahead
Mhm.
of time. But, for various reasons, I was sick. There was a lot going on. And so here we are today on the 1st. And we have the second of the duo of eclipses happening tomorrow. I was just telling Jenny prior to recording that, again, I'm feeling buzzy.
Mhm.
My it is a solar eclipse after all, which is a new moon that's eclipsed, and it's the ring of fire, and it's very much about like a new thing. Like it is still has that new moon energy, but because it's the wrapping up of the cycle of Aries and Libra eclipses, because they're coming to a close. And so it is almost does feel like something is coming to an end. Like the door is closing, that portal door is about to close. So whatever has been happening for people from like spring of 2023, really, there may be some revisiting of things with this coming eclipse. And as always, eclipses, as you know, may not have an immediate impact. We may not feel it, may kind of trickle down in weeks to come, but there is an energy of something closing and something
Yeah.
new, which is why I think it had a lot of physical impact on people. People got
Mhm.
sick. It was a lot of actual physical. The energy was playing through the physical body, moving through the physical body a lot, and that is very Pisces Virgo. So yes, you're absolutely right. We are starting the month with an eclipse.
Yeah. And it's funny because some of the themes I'm noticing are it felt very much like a carry on, as we said it would maybe be from Virgo season into Libra season in terms of looking very much at our routines and daily habits. But what it feels like to me is that we've been forced to reflect on how we relate to ourselves with those things. And I feel like so many people I've spoken to and the people I work with feel like there's a lot of old stuff coming up and old stories and old behaviors, and they're saying things like, "I don't know, I thought I was over that, and I don't know why that's coming up." And we know that we do work like healing work in a cycle, and we're gonna always come back to some of the things that are things for the rest of our lives possibly, but we always come back a little bit more armed and a little bit more aware and a little bit more supported, I guess. But what this theme seems to be for a lot of people is God, I really noticed how I was speaking to myself during that time, or I really noticed how hard I was being on myself this time, where it's like realizing, oh, that way of relating to myself isn't working anymore. That's not for me. I don't want to be like shitting on myself or being, you know, judgmental or shaming or whatever. There seems to be a kind of theme along that aspect.
That is the energy of eclipses in general because they move through what's called a Saros cycle every 18 years. This is, as you said, the healing that happens in cycles. I think of them as like infinity symbols, but then like not always landing on the same in the same place. But we're kind of, going through some similar themes, part of a much bigger story. And
Mhm.
so during a time like this, and especially with still a few retrograde planets right now, having us sort of reflect in a reflective stance still, and Pluto will go direct this month. However, Jupiter will station retrograde for 4 months. And so we may find in certain areas of our life, like I was saying to you around health and things, all of a sudden I'm like, why am
Going
I
back.
getting, why is my anxiety ramping up? Why am I feeling? And it's like, yeah, there's something here that I need to like
Mhm.
look at a little bit closely. What like onion layer am I
Yeah.
ready to peel back now? Am I ready to do a little deeper work? Am I ready to do heal a little bit more? And I think eclipses are always an opportunity. They're kind of like they push us into it in a way. It's
Yeah.
we get thrown into it. It's like, well, here you go.
"Oh, you think you've done work on this? Let's just see."
And that's why I think I don't like them. I'm
I
like,
know. They're very confronting, aren't they? There's like this it's almost like swirling up the dirt at the bottom of a puddle or the bottom of a thing. And it's very like can be very confusing and confronting in that I thought I was done with that. Or oh, that's an old story. Oh, I didn't realize I was still believing that. Oh, look how I'm treating myself. And it's almost like, but I do think it has a purpose. And as much as I know you and I don't, we are very sensitive to these things, so we probably don't love that. But we also they're necessary, aren't they? Like, and I feel like September was asking us, especially with the Virgo aspect of things, to like explore. And it was kind of more like, try how do you want to spend your days and how do you want to start your mornings and what kind of routines do you want to, and it was that kind of more hopeful feeling about exploring those themes. But this month feels like right now, well, which one's working and which one's not actually working? Like, you can't have them all.
that's exactly it. And I think the thing about Virgo, as we move from Virgo to Libra, there's a little bit of with Libra, and now that we're in the thick of it, and switching from Libra to Scorpio halfway through or towards the end of this month, it's like Virgo is like ready to go. List made. I am
Yeah.
all the way in. Let's do
Yeah.
this. I got this. Let's go. And yeah, absolutely. And you're like, wait, no. Like for me, it was like, that's it. I'm stopping coffee. I'm done. This isn't the way. I know what it does. I don't like it. Messes me up, stresses me out. And guess what? Like it's like that, right? Like I'm just all of a sudden the regiments are being set in place, and there's an element of control there, right? Because I absolutely have no control over what's going on in the world. The
Mhm.
poly crisis that's happening that like I'm being gaslit into thinking it's not. So let me
Yeah.
just focus on what I can. And so
Mhm.
it's like, whether it is like literally the poly crisis or whether it's like just crisis in our own personal life, I think Virgo's like, let me just make my list. This is all I have
I
control over.
love a list. I mean, who doesn't love a list? I feel like Libra likes making their list much smaller. They're like, "No, no, we're not doing that."
Libra's like, let's just hang out or let's make some art and, let's
Yeah.
go to protest and make some like really nice you know, banners and placards to hold.
Mhm.
So I don't know how you feel about this shift, but
Mhm.
what October really feels like to me, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, is there is a very relational, interpersonal, relationship like focus. And I know that is the stereotype of Libra,
Mhm.
definitely. But when I looked at the various aspects, which are essentially planetary connections, so what planets are doing, it was making me think about committing. So this idea of like a recommitment or a exploration of our connection to either people in our life or ourselves. There's a very relational energy here. And you can apply this to anything, whether it's like your career, your personal life, your romantic life, um, activism, there is something here that is pointing to it's in the relationships. So I want to hear your thoughts about that because I feel like October really deepens this.
Yeah, so the tarot associated with Libra season is Justice, Judgment, and then there's a numerological link with High Priestess that also has a link to the Empress and the Queen of Swords. The first thing that came to mind was compassionate discernment, and that is a relational thing when we're discerning people, situations.
Mm.
relationships, and it includes how we relate to ourselves as well. And it's how do we have real compassionate discernment around where our energy is going to, like almost taking a step back from our emotional attachment to how we relate to ourselves and to things, and looking at it from a more like Queen of Swords is very good at getting quite clear to things. Discernment's kind of their thing, and they're very like I think Lindsay Mack calls them sort of bad bitch of boundaries. So there's a real like sense of like being very clear about or having more clarity around how we want to relate to ourselves and the people around us, and where we give our energy, who we give our energy to, how much we give to it, and what we're worthy of too. Like because the Empress is there, the High Priestess is there, the Queen of Swords is there. Those are real, like those are very regal, they're sitting on thrones, which is foundational. There's like real energy around confidence and how we're being presented information and how we're going to discern what's important and not important, and what we're willing to accept for ourselves and what we're willing to like put out into the world, and how much of that, whilst also
Mm.
see it's like a being in a perch where you can see something really clearly. Do you know what I mean? And yes, that's for me. No, that's not for me.
Discernment is important, as you were saying, in terms of like who and what we choose to entangle our energy with,
Yeah.
and when you talk about the Queen of Swords, the bad bitch of boundaries, as you said,
Yeah.
to think about where do I draw the line, like for myself or at this moment, or what, maybe it's a constant practice when it's
Yes.
relational, right? Because people change.
Yes.
People don't stay
Oh,
the same, right?
yeah.
Discernment isn't something that we just do and then stop because, I have reconnected with a friend after a bunch of years, and we both have had our own journeys and reconnected back. We've had our own little swirls and healing and come back as more aligned selves and reconnecting in this deeper way together. And so, whatever boundaries were needed at that time or whatever
Yeah.
happened, it didn't mean they were set in stone. So, we've come
Yeah.
back, we've recommitted to a friendship in this different way. We're relating to each other differently. The love is always has been there, but this is the type of stuff. So, I appreciate you bringing that up.
I was gonna say that, like, it's not boundaries that are harsh and cold and impenetrable. Like, healthy boundaries, like I've talked a bit before about Heather Plett has a beautiful book called Art of Holding Space, and she talks about boundaries as being like cells, and they're permeable, and you can they let in what needs to be let in, and they know when to close off a bit to keep things out. So it's a very soft, gentle, like it's a trusting thing. And I think hard boundaries that are like very hyper vigilant and defensive are a sign that you don't trust your boundaries, right? And I think that equally being wide open, people pleaser, you don't trust boundaries, or you don't have understand how they can help you, so you're scared of them. And I think there's a real, with the Empress sitting in this, there's an element of like real, like knowing and trusting yourself that you'll know when you need to implement a boundary, learning to know that, learning to know how to say it and speak it in a way that's compassionate to yourself and to other people, ways to let them be flexible if they need to be, and ways to be like, it's a gift, right? Like someone said, I can't remember, there's a quote about boundaries are a way to, I can share with you how you can love me. It's that kind of thing, right? And I think the Empress is the worthiness piece in this month, that everyone is deserving of that work, of discernment, of compassion, of boundary work, of like um, knowing what's best for them, and asking for that, or setting themselves up in a way that can support that. Like the Empress is all about your relationship to worthiness. And so that piece in this month feels really, really important.
I appreciate that because I think, too, hard boundaries are a very individualistic,
Mhm.
capitalist, patriarchal,
Yeah.
colonial vibe. Coming from that energy, my culture, there may be like a little bit of lack of boundaries. I'm Iranian, I'm Middle Eastern, and I think you can definitely work a little bit more around boundaries. But the idea is that community, your village, your tribe, your peoples, especially for
Mhm.
those that are come from tribal communities and nomadic communities or communities that like really are relying on each other for staying well. Anyway, I just want to say that this isn't how a lot of people in the world live with these hard
Mm.
boundaries.
It is part of capitalism. It's the belief that we're each individually responsible for our good fortune, and it's like a moral collection or connection to how well you do in life, but you yourself, by yourself, for yourself, self-made,
Yeah,
all that kind of stuff. Nobody's fucking self-made, excuse my language.
exactly.
Unless you grew up in a really isolating, by yourself environment, which some people have, but very few people are. We are relational beings, and I think that's what you were getting back to. We are the sum of our experiences, and that involves heavily human experiences, interactions. In Scotland, it's quite a common thing too in towns and villages to everybody knows each other's business. Everybody knows everybody. People drop in without phone calling or texting, which, like, is there's an element, everyone on the street knows each other. Like, I think that's the normal way of humans to be, and this capitalist mindset of we do everything on our own, and how successful you are in the world is a direct reflection of who you are as a person and your morality and your worth. And I think the thought of somebody dropping in to my house without texting or calling ahead is absolutely terrifying to me because I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. Um, is a really beautiful thing too. And I think that, yeah, it's how do we can have both. I do believe we can have both. We can feel safe and secure in ourselves and what we have going on, and that we can say yeses and nos where we need to. But we also have really beautiful, healthy, relational relationships with people that are mutually respectful and understanding. Justice and judgment, the tower cards associated with this season as well, are all about, like, justice is about, like, accepting what is,
Mm,
right? Because you can't make change without accepting what is, and if you don't accept what is, and that's sometimes really hard. So it's that real, like, wrestling with being honest with ourselves, being really honest about the situations that we're maybe contributing to or that we're not engaging in how we would like to. And judgment's very much in a broader sense being shown things, like looking behind, pulling the veils back, right? And having a look, and you can't unsee these things. And so our whole lives are going to be adapting to new truths and new understandings, plus also being shown. And I mean, we are being shown. We have never been shown more in our lives, than we are right now. We've access to what's happening around the world in real life time. We're being shown some of the most horrific things. So,
mm,
you know what I mean? You can't look away, you can't unsee. And so it's asking us to be really adaptable in what we believe to be true.
yeah.
And how are we going to then fold that into our daily lives so we're not making ourselves sick, but also
Mm.
not contributing further if we can help it. Do you know what I mean? It's like this constant, like, woo.
I think that that Queen of Swords that you mentioned is so helpful
Yes.
in
Mhm.
those ways. Libra energy needs that. It needs
Yes.
the Queen of Swords, and when the hard and fast boundaries need to happen, or the sense of
Mhm.
discernment, the clear thinking. Because
Yeah.
everybody's fun. Let's go to the pub and have like a couple
Yeah.
pints and laugh it up. But what's at the core?
Yeah.
What are people's values? What are people's
Mhm.
where's people's hearts at? Where is your heart at? What is
Yeah.
energy like? Like these are things that is like all well and good when we're in that social headspace, but when
Mhm.
the good time is gone, Libra's like, what's the balance here? Like what
And
is
that's the Empress, I feel. Like, it's the Queen of Swords with the Empress is the warmth and the heart. The Empress is the heart of things. And I love that. I love that thought, like, you can have both. It's a both and all the time. We know that life is nuanced, life is multitudes, and it's both and all the time of that heart, but with that boundary. And
yeah,
it's almost, with potential boundaries where we may need them. And the Queen of Swords is literally the queen of discernment. It
yeah,
is just, let's talk. What are we talking about here? What are you actually
yeah.
saying? What do you mean by that? And the Empress is, what am I worthy of? Do I deserve that? Do I
Mm,
wanna be around that energy and those that beliefs, and now I'm seeing this person for who they are. Do I
yeah.
want to be around that anymore? As I see my workplace for what it is, can I stand to be around that anymore? Or opposite,
Mm,
there's a beautiful group of people who seem to be interested in creating friendships. I deserve to be part of that. And like, who do I want to spend my time and who do I want to build my life with? You know what I mean? It's that kind of like woven, that weaving of really lovely opportunity too.
Again, I think Libra season where it's about justice and balance and harmony, but not necessarily in a light and fluffy way. Yes, let's go have
Oh,
the pint, but or whatever, have some tea or
yeah.
coffee and chat, but also like it's a little deeper than just a social butterfly kind of vibe. Like it is very Venus ruled, but also in a way of like loving each other and self with values and not just for satiating our needs or like satisfying our carnal needs, which is also the Venus version of Taurus. But the Venus version of Libra is like, what do we think about each other in the ways that we open our
Mhm.
hearts to each other? Like, how are we doing this? How are we causing harm? How do we restore harmony? As we move into Scorpio season, I think that there's a layer of Scorpios like, yeah, let's go there. Let's go deep.
Let's go there and let's let some shit go. I can't wait for Scorpio season, by the way. But yes, there's the death card, death energy in Scorpio is massive. And I think that's what I feel with you the same way that this is what this is leading towards. We're in the work because this is an energy, there's a very air energy to this month. So it's a lot of thought processing, figuring out, discernment, that kind of thing. But there is quite a bit of water in it too. And that's where the compassion part thing. So that connection with our emotions. And what I would say though, with this month is can get very heady and it can get very like your thoughts influence your feelings influence your thoughts. And that cycle can be a bit damaging or can like wind itself up. What I would say is there's also a request in this season and this month right now to get in your body, and the embodiment stuff is huge. And you're getting those thoughts, feelings cycled into an action and making sure that we are taking action, deliberate, intentional, healthy for us,
Yeah.
simple, balancing, grounding action for the things that are going on here. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like let yourself go there. But don't let it become a closed loop of feeling thought feeling. Like let's also take it through and out. And I think that's where we'll get a lot more at water stuff coming up in Scorpio anyways, but it's
Mm.
gonna be, yeah. And so Scorpio season, when we tick over and what, 21st, is it 21st, 22nd?
This year it's the 22nd. Yeah, it's the 22nd. And it's a particularly potent end of October. And I just want to
Mhm.
say that from the 28th to the 31st, interestingly enough, this year, there's a bunch of planetary aspects. If folks are interested to know more about the specifics of planetary aspects and the forecast for October, it's on my Patreon. So I
Mhm.
won't go into details here, but I will say that October 30th and 31st is particularly interesting enough because it's Soen, right? Did I say that
Mhm.
correctly?
Yeah,
Soen. Yep.
there's a few ways to say it, but yes, that's how I say it. So,
Okay.
or
Um,
Samhain, either one.
Soen. So and then of course the Dia de los Muertos, which is coming
Yep.
as well. It's like there's a couple of astrological things happening that are making the veils like wow, like woo, if people want to do some energy work, cast some spells, like
Mm,
spiritual downloads, pretty potent start to Scorpio season this year. I just want to say that.
yeah. And we love it. It's a lot of water and fire energy. So it's really cool. You mentioned, so the numerological link to death card is 4, which is Emperor, which is also fire, which is
Hmm.
linked to Aries, which is also linked to Mars, which is the tower. So yes, so we've got death card with tower with Aries, and that is like showing up, but like showing up in your space and just really there's like like opportunities for great shake up and like by letting stuff go and like just a chasm of like possibility, I think. Um, which I think is really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing. I mean, I'll probably end up regretting saying this because be nice to have a season that we just really enjoy and get really witchy with. This is what I want to do with this one.
Well, I just had like a really wild download as you were talking, and I was like, oh my God, it's like this Libra season kind of stands as gather your witches, gather your coven, bring them together to like conjure for Scorpio season. So Libra season's relational experience, really, I'm just getting goosebumps. It's like, get your peoples together and let's make some stuff happen. So whether this is like casting collective spells against the evil forces, and by
Mhm.
forces, you can interpret that however way you like, whether it's that or whether it's gathered together to boost somebody in your community or to boost
Yeah,
self or, like
yeah,
whatever that is. I just got the goosebumps around that because also we have that um Aries super full moon happening on the 17th. And I love
okay,
Aries. You said Mars, you said
yeah,
I feel like
so
that
fun. Yeah,
that full
mhm,
moon coming after the Libra eclipse. It's Aries and Libra have been in eclipses, but this is a super full moon that's not an eclipse. It's Aries, but it's not eclipsed. And I think this is like a coming
mhm,
out into our power. Like that's what this
yeah,
super full moon on the 17th feels like, where it's like, and Venus enters Sagittarius, so more fire energy
yeah.
um, coming our way.
And the
Um,
moon's water. So it is just literally I think it's an early kickoff to Scorpio season. That's what that moon feels like. Ooh.
Yeah, because it's also a few days before, and it lingers, right? 17th to the 22nd is we're still in the energy of that full moon. So when you said that, I was like it's
Mm.
like reclaiming the witch
Yeah,
within, or the healer within, or the whatever, however way you want to term it, and literally
yeah,
just gathering the folks
yeah,
that you feel connected to or aligned with, and moving into that second, like that last part, October 22nd onwards, to use those energies to do the magic, like whatever that feels like.
yeah, whatever that and there's no one way to do it. And don't I'm gonna say as a just be mindful of there's a lot of pseudo stuff out there. We know this. It's very just talk about discernment. It's very hard to navigate when you feel pulled to being a bit more witchy or however that looks spiritual. It doesn't need to look like anyone else's practice. It doesn't need to look a certain way. There's no rules, there's no set rules. There is ritual. There are wimps who practice certain ways.
Yeah,
There's lineages to be mindful of. But if you're just exploring this and feel an urge to explore it, just let yourself be pulled by what you're feeling drawn to. Yeah, I mean, as someone who's exploring my own spiritual path, and I do support this in my on my membership page as well because I feel very strongly that it's hard right now to find genuine supports around creating your own magical sort of spiritual life when you're not part of a
yeah.
society or a culture or a religion that has set
Mhm.
practices. Do you know what I mean? So just be mindful of that. It doesn't need to look like anyone else's necessarily. You're allowed to explore, you're allowed to play about. Just be
Mhm.
respectful.
That's really like the beauty of your page, where you offer these like sort of gentle suggestions in terms of like how people can awaken into their own um,
Mhm,
healer and leader and awaken the witch within. I'll just say add to that. And I do
mm,
think that is perfect what you were saying. Like you do offer that to folks in such a beautiful way. And I
mhm.
think that Aries full moon, as you were saying, is a little bit about like just trusting the leader within oneself, which
Yeah,
is so Aries. And and so absolutely I appreciate you saying that. I would also add to that that folks who are energy sensitive should also really practice energy hygiene and
yeah,
protection, because if you're first starting out to do this work, it's not about fear mongering, but it's about like energies are potent, right? And so sometimes we're drawn to someone because their energy is so alluring.
mhm,
And it's happened to me, it's happened to both of us along our journey, I'm sure,
mm.
where we've been like
Oh, yeah.
following this person and then later going, when we kind of come into our own power, feeling connected to it, we're like, this does not feel aligned for me. This is giving me like ick. And a great way to cleanse one's energy, like there's so many different ways, right? There is
Yeah,
using all the elements like water, taking
mhm.
showers, but intentionally just letting the
Yeah,
water.
I do that with my soap, my French soap that I lather up, and I literally imagine that protection around. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Visualization's great. Yeah. Mhm.
Or like another way is to put like, Himalayan salt or some kind of
Mhm.
salt,
Salt.
even like sea
Mhm.
salt, on
Yep.
into the shower just a little bit, just stepping on it as to cleanse your feet in that way, to water coming, the salt grounding.
Mm,
There's so many ways, and I think that's the cool
yep.
thing about the internet. The good side of it is that one
Yes.
can explore, and you can always ask your guides or your, as you could say, your wellness council or like your loving ancestors to guide you where to go and give you that sense of discernment to protect you as you search things. They will take you to
Absolutely.
the right places. I know, I've experienced it. I'm sure you have too.
Oh, I absolutely have.
Me
And
too.
that's what it is. It becomes a knowing. When you check in with yourself, it's like I call them spiritual breadcrumbs because I feel like a lot of us are just trying different things, and you try them on, and that is highly recommended. Try things on, but really make sure you always give space to check in and be, does that feel right? Does that feel like mine? Is that my practice? Is that even a practice I should have access to? Probably, maybe that, using white sage and to,
Yes.
it's not for
Is it
me. Whereas,
appropriate?
like, yeah, whereas, I can grow my own rosemary. It grows in abundance, and I'm going to make my own burning things, or juniper in Scotland's
Daily.
a big one. Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Daily.
Yeah.
Time. We
Bailey's,
all have.
yep, yep.
It's all from the
So,
natural world, absolutely. It doesn't have to be like, taking indigenous practices and
yeah,
making it your own. And I have also been told that if one is to do that, there has to be like some sort of like an
yeah,
honoring or giving a thanks, like actively working with the plants of the lands
yeah,
that we're on if we're not from those lands or we're settled on those lands. And so I think
100%.
there's so many practices that can, cleanse our energy and protect us. People use crystals, people use affirmations, people do visualizations, and there's like um
Oils, whatever.
on my YouTube
Yeah.
page, I have a couple of really quick 5-minute protection
Oh,
grounding.
mhm.
There's lots of those out there. I'm not saying mine is a thing, but I think like
Oh,
even
it's good. I've done it. I was
5
gonna
minutes.
say, yes, it's brilliant. Yours is really good. I really enjoyed that one. It felt, and that's what I love about both of our, I think we really lean heavily into the practical side of things, so our stuff tends to be, short and sweet, and just sit with it, and then and also, like, trusting yourself to know, if I wanna expand on that, I can. If I need more of that, I'll figure it out, and if it's not for me, I'll put it to the
I'll like
side, and that's
exactly.
so.
I just want to say that, I have had an experience where myself, but also someone close to me who was very visual in how they see spirit and see like the veil so thin they see, entities or realms from other dimensions and things. And it was really scary for them. And
Mhm.
so they, was like, no, thank you. There's a way to also,
Yeah.
we're speaking of boundaries earlier. There's a way to also communicate with
Mhm.
you can be like, "No, thank you. Not welcome
Mhm.
here, not into
Mhm.
this." And it stopped for that person. They did a thing and moved on and never had those experiences again. And I think and then, we can dip our toes in if we're new to these things and if it's not comfortable. And a long time
Mhm.
ago, I'll tell you something, just a side note, was after I had my kid, I had him at like, I think I was 39 when I gave birth to him, and a little bit later, I was like, I think I might want another kid. The pull was wild. And my partner, who also has two other children, so I've got a couple of stepchildren, and then like my kid was like, "Oh hell no!"
Yeah. He's good.
Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. So we had a lot of conversation, and he was like, "Well, where's this coming from?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's like this like wild pull. I can't even explain it." And so I booked a session at the time with an intuitive I was working with, and they were like, the ancestral realm, you can have a combo with them. If it feels very strong pull, they're saying the energy of creation doesn't have to just be children, right? And so
Yes.
the wild is they were like, go back to them and be like, hey, I know you really want another one for the lineage, but
Yeah.
I'm not there. And so what ended up happening was that very year, I finished my collection of poetry, my first chapbook, published it, and I dedicated it to my loving ancestors and departed
Oh,
loved ones because I was like, "Here you go, guys. This
yeah. I
this is
made you a baby, a book
yeah,
baby.
it's the same energy, creation energy." And
Absolutely.
I only share that to say that it's a two-way conversation, and when we feel
Yes.
as that Aries full moon kind of like we remember our power. We are our own, our soul and spirit has its journey and we have to come into our own strength and protect ourselves so that we
Mhm.
can move through the world, you know, in relational ways, whether it's with the other realm or with other people. And I think that for me just kind of sums up the message of this month really in some ways.
Yeah. And you know what the best part of this whole thing is, Shadi? What did we say before we came on? We'll just make it short and sweet and quick. And it's like we have so much to share.
Listen, we both know the channeling that happens here. Like
Yeah.
it's like we go in, I'm like, I have no energy, Jenny. I don't know, man. We're gonna
Mhm.
keep this short today. I'm not prepared. And
Yeah,
then
same.
our wellness counsel, our guides are like, listen.
They've been like this. When's the podcast happening? 'Cause we've got things to share.
Anyway. Well, as always,
Oh,
it's been so lovely to connect with you.
you as well. What an honor. It's
Yeah,
just, yeah.
same. Feeling is mutual.
Mhm.
I wish you a beautiful October. I wish everybody out there a beautiful October, given
Mhm.
even the state of the world the way it is, and we cannot forget to take care of ourselves, to find moments of joy, to
Mhm.
understand that if this is the new normal, which it is, we
Mhm.
have to live, and we have
Mhm.
to live fully, the full spectrum of emotions, whether that is devastation, rage,
Yeah.
fear, and then Libra season, right?
Yeah.
So
And you'll be I feel a lot of us will be shown that in really stark contrast, and we'll be invited into that, and that's that Empress, and that's that Queen of Swords. The Empress says, "How much goodness can you take and allow yourself and accept because 'cause you're worthy of that?" And the Queen of Swords will is saying, "Yes, and also let's be really discerning about where and whose and why the energy around us, and also be truth tellers to it, speak truth to the world as well." So it is a really beautiful contrast, and I'm very curious to see how we move through this next month into Scorpio season.
Scorpio season, woo woo. Water sign love.
I know. Oh, water sign love. Yeah. But the fire, though, the fire's there. So that's alchemy already. We already know that. Yeah. Thank you so much. We'll see you all next month.
For sure. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.